Hello, Algebra Honors. This is our final exam review, which again is many questions, and your final exam will only be 25 questions. So keep that in mind as you're practicing. We're going to take a look at the, starting with problem 13 today. All right, so we're going to determine the exponent that would make the following equation true. This is our equation. The left side has to equal the right side. So we're going to do all the math that we can on the left side here. So we know if we do all the math that we can, we're going to say 16 divided by 4 is just 4, right? And we know that we can multiply an outer exponent times an inner exponent. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, even though I have a box here, which is really a variable. So I really don't know what this is. So let's move on over. I was left with 4, because 16 divided by 4 is 4. And I have x to the negative 3 squared. So I'm now going to say that that is x to the negative 6. And it's all over x to the 2 times a box. That's our variable. This equals 4x squared. Okay, let's go ahead and keep working here. I'm going to go ahead and divide each side by 4, right? If I divide each side by 4, I'm left with x to the negative 6 over x to the 2 times our box, our variable, equals x squared. Are you okay with that? We're dividing each side by 4 to get rid of the 4. And so now I'm going to use my algorithm. My algorithm tells me that if I have a fraction like this, I can rewrite it. So this is going to be x to the negative 6 minus 2 times that box, right? We take our fraction, we keep our base, and we subtract the lower exponent from the upper exponent. So negative 6 minus 2 times that box. Okay, and that has to equal x squared. Well, if that's true, then I know negative 6 minus 2 times whatever that box is has to equal 2, right? I know that those exponents have to be equal in order for that to be true. I'll add 6 to each side, so negative 2 times my box equals, if I add 6 to each side, 8. And so my box has to equal negative 4. Okay, let's plug it back in and just double check and make sure that's true. If my box in the original is negative 4, then I have 16 times x to the negative 3, all squared, over 4 times x to the, we have just determined it's negative 4 squared. And if I simplify that, I get 4 times x to the negative 6 over x to the negative 8. And I know that that is negative 6 minus negative 8, which is negative 6 plus 8. So I have 4 times x squared. And that is true, so that means we came up with our correct answer. Okay, so moving on, we're going to look at number 14. We're going to do some Unit 4 work, linear equations, slope-intercept form, special lines. Those come from Unit 4. So if you're needing to look back into your notes to see what you're working on. Okay, what is the slope of the line containing these 2 points? So remember, to find slope, we're going to do change in y over change in x. That's our standard. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, so if this is my first point, this is x sub 1, this is y sub 1. This is my second point, this is x sub 2, this is y sub 2. So y sub 2, 6, minus y sub 1, 2/3, all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. How about I didn't do that right? Y sub 2 for real is 6, minus y sub 1 is 4. Sorry about that. Over x sub 2 is 2, minus x sub 1 is 2/3. So I have to do this math, right? I know that this is 2 over 2 minus 2/3. Well, if I had 2 and I take away 2/3, that's going to be 4/3, right? So this is 2 over 4/3. Okay, do you want me to quickly do that? 2 minus 2/3, I have 2 over 1 minus 2 over 3. I need a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by 3 over 3. So this gives me 6/3 minus 2/3, which leaves me with 4/3. Okay, so I just subtracted 2 minus 2/3. now this is 2 divided by 4/3, right? So let's look at it like this, 2 divided by 4/3. And that way, we're going to remember that if we're dividing with fractions, we're going to change, flip. Keep the first guy, 2 over 1, change to multiplication and flip. And then I'm going to simplify so that I have 3/2 as my answer. Okay, so that is my slope. My slope equals 3/2. I know that because I did change in y over change in x. All right, next we have to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So remember, I'm looking for my slope and my y-intercept, right? So that means the form I want is going to be y equals mx plus b. Okay, I'm going to write an equation in slope-intercept form that passes through these 2 points. So I need the slope and I need the y-intercept. Okay, there are a couple different ways to get there. So first I'm going to find slope. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So 9 minus -1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So that's 3 minus 7. So this equals 10 over -4, which equals -5/2. Okay, so I know it's a negative slope. Now, I need to find my b. So I have a couple different ways I can do this. I can plug in things I know. I know a y and an m and an x. So I can find b. That's what I'm going to do first, but I will show you the other way we can do this as well. Okay, so I'm going to just choose my second point because both of those numbers are positive. You can choose either point. I'm going to choose my second point and work with that. So the y there is 9. That equals y equals mx plus b. We just said m is -5/2. If my y is 9, my x is 3 plus b. Okay, and I wrote the 3 funny because I'm going to make it look like a fraction. So what I know then is 9 equals -15/2 plus b. So if I say 9 plus 15/2, 9 plus 15/2 here, I'm going to get, I am going to write it here, 9 plus 15/2 is equal to b. Okay, in order for me to add 2 fractions, they have to have the same denominator. So this is 18/2 plus 15/2, so I get 33/2 is b. b equals 33/2. Okay, so now I know my m. Here was my m, and I know my b, so I can write y equals mx, -5/2 x, plus 33/2. Another way you could have done this is you can use y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. That's the point slope form. You can use that once you find your slope, -5/2. You can plug in either point. I'm going to choose again the 3, 9 point because those are both positive. So I have y minus 9 equals, right, y minus 9, that's my y, equals -5/2 times x minus 3. That was from my x. Okay, then I can rearrange that to make it look like y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to distribute first. I have y minus 9 equals -5/2 x plus 15/2. I'm going to add 9 to each side. Y equals -5/2 x plus 33/2. Right, I added 9 to each side, but I really added 18/2 to each side so that I could just go ahead and do that. Either way, I have gotten the same answer. So you can choose however you want to do that. Okay, number 16. We're going to find an equation of a line. How about I line this up nicely? That passes through these 2 points and is parallel to y minus 5x equals 1. Well, if 2 lines are parallel, remember that their slope has to be exactly the same. Parallel lines have the exact same slope. So, if I need it to be parallel to this line, I need to figure out what the slope is. Okay, I can find the slope if I rearrange this so that I have y equals mx plus b, right? Because then, if I'm in that order, I can, y equals mx plus b. If I'm in that order, I can use my slope. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to add 5x to each side. I know this is y equals 5x plus 1. All I care about here, all I care about is the slope. Don't care about anything else on that once I put it in slope-intercept form. So I know my slope is 5. I need a slope of 5, and I have this point. The point is negative 1, 5. Okay, so it says find an equation of a line that passes through that point. I'm going to go ahead and use the point slope form. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Because then I can just plug in. I've got my slope and I've got my point. So I'm going to say y minus 5 equals 5 times x minus negative 1, which is going to be x plus 1. Okay, that is the slope, the point slope form of the line. If I want to change that into slope intercept, if for some reason I was required to answer in slope intercept, I would say my minus 5 equals 5x plus 5, because I'm distributing. Add 5 to each side, and I would get y equals 5x plus 10. So this line, this equation of a line, y equals 5x plus 10, is the same information that you have in y minus 5 equals 5 times x plus 1. It's the same line, it's just written in two different forms. You were not told which form to use, so I would say either form is fine. All right, for number 17, it says write the equation of a line that's perpendicular to y equals 2x plus 1. And it also has to pass through this point 1, 3. So remember, if something's perpendicular, the slope that's perpendicular is going to be the opposite reciprocal. So this slope here is 2, right? I want to be perpendicular to it, so I'm going to flip it upside down and change the sign. Negative 1/2 is the slope I need. I put the perpendicular sign just to remind myself. This is the slope I want that's perpendicular. M perpendicular. It's the opposite reciprocal of the original slope. So now I have everything I need to write the equation of a line. I'm going to say y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Because I have a slope and I have a point. So this is y minus 3 equals my slope that's perpendicular is opposite reciprocal, so negative 1/2 times x minus 1. Okay, this is the point slope format. If I want slope intercept format, I'm going to distribute that negative 1/2. So I have y minus 3 equals negative 1/2 x plus 1/2. I'm going to add 3 to each side, so y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3, which is plus 6 over 2, yeah? So I'm going to say plus 7/2. Okay, so this is my slope-intercept form, and this is my point slope form. These are the same line, and since the question did not specify which format you needed to use, either one would be acceptable. Right, number 18. Write the equation of the line that you see in slope-intercept form. So I know that that is a slope and a y-intercept. That means I want y equals mx plus b form. That's what I'm looking for, right? So I just need to get y by itself and then have myself in the right order. So, woof, what a mess. Let's go ahead and subtract 3 from each side. Okay, and so 3/7 minus 3, that's 3/7 minus 21/7, right? So that's going to be negative 18/7 y plus 6x equals negative 12x plus 9. I'm going to subtract 6x from each side. So I have negative 18/7 y equals negative 18x plus 9. So now I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to multiply everything. Maybe I'll multiply everything times 7 first. Everything gets multiplied by 7. So I have negative 18y equals, well, let's do some quick math on a calculator. Negative 126x plus 63. And now we're going to divide every single term by negative 18. Okay, because that's going to give me, so I'm just showing you where we're going, it's going to give me y equals negative 126 divided by negative 18 on the calculator is 7. Ooh, how nice and neat. Okay, 7x, and then 63 divided by 18, 63 divided by 18, hey, it's 3.5, 7x plus 3.5. If you did that with fractions, of course, you would have 7x plus 3.5 or 7/2. Okay, it does want slope-intercept form, so you do have to have the y equals mx plus b format. You could also, again, say y equals 7x minus 7/2, because that's, sorry, am I minus 7/2 or am I plus 7/2? Let's check. I am minus, sorry about that, doing some math over here. If I'm dividing by negative 18, that is going to be minus 3.5. Sorry about that. Minus 3.5. All right, number 19. Rewrite the equation in standard form. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. So, if you need reminders about that, that's something that you might want to put on your formula sheet before the final, right? So remember that we have rules with our standard form, though. A has to be positive, and A, B, and C cannot be fractions. So first I'm going to put myself in the right order. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 1/2 x from each side, plus y equals 7/2. Okay, I need to have A be positive, and A, B, and C can't be fractions. So I know that if I multiply the entire thing by -2, the entire thing by -2, -2 times -1/2 is just 1. So I have just x minus 2y equals -7. And that looks like it is in a x plus by equals c format. All right. Number 20. Write an equation of the line in standard form with integer coefficients. Again, can't have fractions for our a or b or c. We're going to have a slope of -2/3, and we are passing through the point 3,4. So ultimately, I'm going to need standard form, ax plus by equals c. But first, I have to come up with the equation that I need anyway. Okay, I have a slope and I have a point, so let's go ahead and do point slope. Y minus y sub 1 is 4 equals my slope, -2/3, times x minus x sub 1, so that. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and use distributive property. Y minus 4 equals -2/3 x plus 2. Add 6 to each side. Y equals -2/3 x plus 6. Well, that is slope-intercept form, but I need standard form. So I'm going to move so that I have my x on the left. I'm coming over here, so I'm going to add 2/3 x to each side. So I have 2/3 x plus y equals 6. I just added 2/3 x to each side. And then I moved it over to the other side of my page where I have more room. Okay, now I need it to be integers, and a, b, and c have to be, or a has to be positive, a, b, and c have to be integers. So I'm going to multiply every single thing by 3, everything times 3, so that I can have everything times 3, so I can have an integer right here. So I'm going to have 2x plus 3y equals 18. That is standard form, and I have no fractions, and I have no greatest common factors, and so I'm feeling pretty solid on that one. Okay, 2x plus 3y equals 18. Excellent. All right, for 21, 22, and 23, we need to write the equation of the line. It does not specify what format, so I see that I have a horizontal line and a vertical line, and this line, I notice, has a negative slope, so I'm going to keep those things in mind, and I'm going to remember Vux Hoi. Okay, this means that if I have a vertical line, if I had to talk about the slope is actually undefined. And when I write the equation, x is going to equal some number. For a vertical line, x equals some number. For a horizontal line, if I had to talk about the slope, the value of the slope is 0. And I would say that you write the equation of that line by saying y equals some number. So let's take a look here. This is a vertical line, so I know it's going to be x equals some number, right, from Vux. So I know that, I'm sorry, this is totally a horizontal line. I do know horizontal from vertical. Horizontal line, so y equals some number. So notice, if I'm looking at this point, that is the point 1, -1, right? If I'm looking at this point, that's -3, -1. If I'm looking at this point, that is 5, -1. Notice that every single time, my y value is the same. My y equals -1, okay? So the way I write an equation for this line, it's a horizontal line, a hoi line, and y equals -1. This one's vertical, up and down is vertical. So I know x equals some number. And again, I can see that x is always equal to 3. X equals 3, and this is 3, 0. This is 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, and so on. So I know x is always equal to 3. On this one, I just really need to make sure I'm noticing to myself that this is a negative slope. So I'm going to probably write this in y equals mx plus b format, because I think I can see the b right here, right? That means b equals 2, where I cross the y-axis. And now I just need to figure out the slope. So the key shows that the slope is -2/3. I actually personally might have said -2/5 or -3/5, I think, but we're going to go with what the key has. I promise on the final exam it'll be really obvious to you what points you get to use. So if we say there's a point right here, we're going to go down 2, so my slope is down 2, so that means it's negative, down 2, and then over over 3. Okay, I have my b and I have my m, so I'm going to say y equals -2/3 x plus 2. If you wrote on your paper down 3 and over 5, I would say pat yourself on the back. That's actually what I probably would have put, but I know on our key we've got -2/3 x. So I promise, it'll be very clear to you on the final exam what points we're expecting to use. Okay, 24, we want to know which one of these best represents the equation 2x plus y equals -1. I have several options. I could actually give myself some x's, plug in x's, and find the y's. I'm actually going to put this in y equals mx plus b format, though, just because I like that personally. So it's going to be y equals -2x minus 1. So I know I need a negative slope. Well, they're all negative slopes, so I guess we're good. I need to cross at -1. So it could be this one. It can't be this, right? That clearly does not cross at -1. This clearly does not cross the y-axis at -1. Oh, and this one doesn't cross. So I've already found my answer D, but just for kicks, if I wanted to plug something easy in, let's plug in if, what if x equals 1? If x equals 1, y has to equal -2 minus 1 is -3. So let's see if we have 1, -1, 2, 3. We do. 1, -3 works as an ordered pair. So great. Okay, we'll stop our, I think we'll stop. I'll look and see what 25 is. Yeah, we'll stop and we'll move on to solving equations and inequalities in our next video.